Ask the man from Ethiopia. Ask the man from Ethiopia. Ask the man from Ethiopia. We got people raising children who don't want to know anything. Say they're not going to live, and you won't challenge them. I don't want to flip burgers. I'd make more money out dealing drugs. Listen to me, idiot. Nobody asked you to flip burgers for the rest of your life. Ask the man from Ethiopia. He will flip some burgers. Why? Because somehow he knows he's going to become the manager of the place. I don't know how many times I've heard some kid coming out say, I'm either going to be killed, or I'm going to kill somebody, or I'm going to go back into prison. We've got 900,000 black men in prison.
And women, mostly black men.
They release 60,000 a month. 60,000 males. About 65% of these males have no high school diploma.
80%.
80%. So they come back to whatever it is they know. In terms of an education, what do they know? They know where they live. They know who they live with. Do they know how to fill out papers? Do they have an idea of what job, or how to get a job, or how to study for a job? No. These are the things that have to happen to these people.
The comic said many of the ills that segments of the black community face can be solved by having greater expectations and by using programs that are already in existence.
There are successful programs where in the city of Wilmington, they now take kids who have been in the 10th grade for 2-3 years and put them in another school, not a special class, not a retarded class, but in one where they have to wear a uniform, where their parents have to sign on for a number of dates that they must appear and be a part of the program. In Wilmington, Delaware, where you pass or fail, but the passing grade is 85. Now, you can get a whole bunch of people, Mr. Gordon, who will go ballistics. That's too high. You're expecting to? No, it isn't, because they have teachers. And these kids learn plenty quick how it feels to get an 85, and what a 90 feels like, and what a 100 feels, and their self-value rises.
Cosby also said leadership must make sure not to lose sight of their role in correcting these issues.
I remember watching Julian Bond. He said something, man, and I cringed. And he was with James Brown on a television show, and they were talking about youth or something, and this brilliant man, so well educated, so many stripes from the civil rights movement, so many successes, said something to the effect that he really didn't want to challenge youth or what was going on that much, because he didn't want to be seen as an old fuddy-duddy. And I just winced. And I wondered, man, who's going to tell him he has to?
So, Doctor, where did it change? It seems to me that often the media is a reflection of the times. And if you look at the 60s and 70s and just listen to music of the 60s and 70s, it was hopeful, it was togetherness, it was bringing about change. If you look at today's and listen to today's music, it is something completely different that Dr. Cosby has already talked about. Where did we see the change? Is there a pinpoint, is there a blip on the screen that you can point to say, that's where we turned the corner?
Well, the blip that I see, I identify with some older rap artists who first started publicly using the word nigger in rap. Now that goes back probably 30 years. Remember there was a group called Niggers with Attitude?
NWA.
That goes way back. And I remember being on a program with Ice-T maybe 30 years ago, and he was trying to explain to me why nigger was now a positive term, and that's why you could use it, and so on and so forth. And then I think that we spiraled downward after that. Then the whole thing opened up with profanity, with misogyny, with the bitches and the whores. All of that opened up and actually captured a lot of the black community and a lot of the black youth. And I think at the same time, you had other things going on with changing attitudes toward education. You had more single-parent homes. So about 70% of homes now in the black community are single families headed by women. If you go back like 1950, it was reversed. Most of the kids were born into two-parent homes, about close to 80% of them. So you had a lot of breaking down of the family.
So let's give hip-hop its failure in that. Where does middle-class failure come in, black middle-class failure, which clearly at some point we saw a breakdown in some of the things that Mr. Cosby was talking about that we grew up with, that were no longer even touted as the right thing to do in middle-class families?
Well, I think that we've been quiet in kind of spreading the gospel about our values and what's right and what's wrong, and been a little bit too passive about it. But I think the black middle class still has been involved. If you looked at all of the organizations and so on, all the people promoting self-help, a lot of those people are middle class who are working in the black community. And I'm talking about from doctors to social workers to counselors to people working in community programs to people working in fatherhood projects, male responsibility projects. A lot of that comes from the black middle class. So we've been trying to do what we can, but we're not doing enough.
Do you think the majority of the black middle class has shouldered its weight in this?
I think that there's a war. There always has been. Bourgeois baiting. And you trying to be better than I, baiting. You live in the projects and you're walking around with your books and you get kids looking at you and, well, you think you're better than anybody else, and comes down to where you may pretend you're dressing the same way that they're dressing. But Mr. Gordon, there's a confusion. We've got to get the people who are behaving in a detrimental way to see and understand where they're wrong, because I think they're absolutely afraid. I think they're frightened. I think they feel helpless. I think the very people who stand up for them per se, well, you're putting out stereotypes. Well, you don't like, Bill Cosby doesn't like poor people. Haven't done a darn thing to help poor people.
More with Bill Cosby and psychiatrist Alvin Poussant right after this.
These people have taken it, and they weren't afraid, and they ran into hurdles, but they had goals. We got people raising children who don't want to know anything. Say they're not going to live, and you won't challenge them. I don't want to flip burgers. I make more money out dealing drugs. Listen to me, idiot. Nobody asked you to flip burgers for the rest of your life. Ask the man from Ethiopia. He will flip some burgers. Why? Because somehow he knows he's going to become the manager of the place. I don't know how many times. Ask the man from Ethiopia. He will flip some burgers. Why? Because somehow he knows he's going to become the manager of the place. Listen to me, idiot. Listen to me, idiot. Ask the man from Ethiopia. He will flip some burgers. Why? Because somehow he knows he's going to